I think we're finally live. That was way too hard. Goodness. Okay, we're live. All right. Let's go ahead. Okay, I think we're finally live. All right, I need to connect to Facebook. Then we're gonna go ahead and get started. I apologize for the delay. Yeah. Oops. Oh, she's pretty. I'm on Facebook looking at people's pictures. I'm getting on here for real though. Okay, I think we have everything that we're supposed to have now. Oh, we're refreshing. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start it because I already prolonged this. My apologies in advance. Oh, but it looks like it's not showing up yet. I'm just in struggle mode over here. Okay, we're live. All right. Okay, let me know if you cannot hear me. If you have any issues with it, let me know. Otherwise, I don't know. I have the chat open over here for YouTube, and I have the Facebook Live in front of me, so I should be able to see any questions or anything that you all have. So, first things first, hey, I apologize in advance for the delay. I ended up working late, so I didn't get home until almost 8 o'clock, and there were some technical difficulties. Nonetheless, we are here. I do just ask that y'all bear with me because I'm a little bit under the weather, so my voice is a little bit iffy, but thank you for everyone who's tuning in. Briefly, I just want to say a couple things, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. This is the self-publishing Q&A, so if you have any questions, feel free to answer them. I'm trying to make sure that I look at the questions on Facebook Live and YouTube. I am going to do kind of like some general talking just about different things regarding publishing books, but if there's anything that I talk about that you have questions about, or if it's something that I don't address, feel free to chime in at any point and ask questions, and I will try to. All right, thanks, Mom, for letting me know you hear me. All right, let me get some water, and then we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. All right, so first things first. The reason why I wanted to do this self-publishing Q&A is because I have written 2 books myself, so I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm pretty knowledgeable about how to write a book, the different steps that go into it, and I get a lot of questions about kind of where do you begin, what's the process like. Oh, and FYI, if I lose connection through either Facebook or YouTube, go to either or, but hopefully we'll be all right. Okay, there we go. Hopefully we don't have a ton of issues throughout this whole video, but just bear with me, guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. My most recent book is called Secret Struggles, that is available now. Of course, I have to put out this shameless plug. It's available now at changeheartstore.com. It is also available in the ebook version on Amazon.com. So this is my second book. My first book was called Changed Heart, which is based on my testimony. That is also available at changeheartstore.com and Amazon.com. So let's go ahead and get right into the basics. I made a little list for myself to try to kind of stay on topic. Like I said, if there's any questions that you have about anything that I cover, if I don't cover something as I go on to the next topic, feel free to jump in at any point and ask questions. I want to make sure that I give you all the opportunity to ask any questions. Okay, so pretty much the main question that I get when it comes to publishing a book is, where do you start? Like, what is the kind of starting ground, I guess you would say, for writing a book? I always tell people, I'm going to get comfortable because, like I said, I just got home from work and it's been a long day, so we're going to get comfortable up here. We're just going to chat. So as far as starting, I always tell people you have to start somewhere. I think when we're writing, when you think of the idea of writing a book, it can seem really overwhelming when you think about trying to write 150 pages, 200 pages, 300 pages, whatever it might be. It can always feel really overwhelming, but you have to start somewhere. It helps for you to be able to at least create an outline for yourself as far as what specifically it is that you want to talk about. Break down your chapters into outlines so that you have a better idea of like what the direction of your book is. Once you have an idea of the direction that you want your book to go, it's then easier to break down each chapter and decide, okay, what are these chapters going to be about? Something that I know a lot of people who have written books, something that they encourage, I don't necessarily encourage or discourage you doing, but is setting aside writing days. That personally does not work for me. Yes, it's good for you to make sure that you get into the habit of writing, but sometimes your schedule just ain't gonna work. Things happen, life happens, it may not work, but if you can dedicate at least 1 or 2 days a week to focus on your writing, and even if you don't write anything, at least start working on an outline of what you want the chapter to be on, what it is that you want to focus on, so that it makes it easier when you do start writing, you have some type of groundwork to build upon. The other thing, as y'all can see, I'm a hand talker. The other thing that I would encourage is to set realistic writing goals. I think sometimes we just get very overzealous, and that's good, but we get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to spend all day long writing from 8 a.m. to the time that I go to bed. That sounds good, but realistically, are you really going to do that? I think it's important for you to set, when you're making outlines, when you're setting deadlines and goals for writing a book, it's really important for you to think about, okay, realistically, knowing my particular lifestyle, not somebody else's, but looking at my particular lifestyle, what works for me as far as setting aside days and times to make time for writing. My first book, I wrote it when I was unemployed, and I learned for myself that as you're writing, you will get into these grooves, and you'll be like, everything's just flowing, everything is making sense, and it seems like it's going very easy. That time for me was between like 11 p.m., well, between 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't have to get up and go to work the next morning, so that worked for me. Now that I work full-time, that is not an option. I can't stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning. So it did take me longer to write the second book. With that being said, you will notice that sometimes you will just get in a groove. When you find that groove, stay with it as long as you can. Write as much as you can to get it done. The next thing that I would say is, when you're first writing your book, don't worry about getting to the final draft of it, if that makes sense. And the reason why I say that is I think a lot of times as we're writing, we're trying to perfect it as we go. Don't worry about that starting off. When you're just trying to write, just write. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about trying to have everything flow. Just write. You'll go back and you'll read it. You'll go back and make changes and corrections to it. But as you're writing, just to get pen to paper, just to get words out, go ahead and just write it out. Alright, so that's everything that I have as far as the where to start portion. For people who are coming on later on, hello, welcome. As I stated in the beginning, y'all have to bear with me. I'm a little bit under the weather, so bear with me. Alright, so typically after you have started the writing process, the next part after you have completed your entire manuscript is editing. You can either do editing or formatting first. However, depending on whether or not you're going to do your own formatting, I would recommend you doing editing first. And the reason for that is because, excuse me, with formatting, you pretty much want everything to kind of be how your book is going to be before you get it formatted. Because if you get it formatted, if you're paying someone to format your book, and you go back and edit it later, it's going to change some of the formatting, so it's best to just wait and do that at the end. If you're going to format your book yourself, and I'm going to talk about formatting and all that stuff, feel free to format it before you send it to the editor. And the only reason why I say that is because it does kind of help to get you motivated, because once you format it down, it looks like a real book. So it's like, oh, you actually feel like you're doing something. It's starting to feel more real. So let's go back to editing. So I told you all when I was going to do this Q&A that I wanted to cover how to publish on a budget, cover the different costs and everything for self-publishing. So pretty much the biggest expense that you are going to spend when it comes to self-publishing is on editing. That is what is going to cost you the most, hands down. editing is charged by the word. So something that I did not know that I don't know if other people were aware of, there are different levels of editing. I just thought, I send you my work, you make it look pretty, and you send it back to me. No. There are different levels of editing. So there's copy editing, there's line editing, developmental editing, there's proofreading. There's a ton of different levels of editing. So pretty much what happens is when you decide on an editor, you send your manuscript to them. Usually you email it to them. They kind of they don't read it per se, but they kind of review it really briefly, and they determine what type of level of editing that they recommend. Something that I was not aware of, proofreading is the most basic, minor type of editing services that you can get. You do not want to just get proofreading services. When I first wrote my first book, I thought that was all I needed. It's I don't think I need anything else. But the other types of editing focus more so on the flow of your sentences, the flow of your paragraphs. It focuses on more the structure of your sentences to make sure that what you're saying, that it flows well, that it makes sense what you're saying. And going through the copy editing, line editing, developmental editing, those are definitely more of an in-depth type of editing. Now, because of that costs more. Typically with proofreading, depending on who you get to edit your book, proofreading is going to be cheaper because it is only, they usually charge you by the page versus by word count, whereas all the other types of editing, they do charge you by the word count. So, with that being said, editing can run you anywhere from a couple of $100s to a couple of $1,000. It's not going to be one set fee because it's going to be determined by your word count. To give you an idea of how much I paid for my editing services, with my first book, Changed Heart, I want to say that book was somewhere between 34 to 36,000 words, and I believe I paid, it was either $420 or $450. I think it was $450 that I paid for that, and I did that through, her name is Grammar Gal. Her name is actually Stacey K, but she goes by Grammar Gal, and I did that through Fiverr, so that's Fiverr. Let me tell y'all about Fiverr. So with the Fiverr, Fiverr is an app. You can also just do Fiverr.com, but it is an app that you can download on your phone. So with Fiverr, it's pretty much this service that is provided that they have a bunch of people on there who just do all kinds of things, whatever you need pretty much. And editing services is one of them that's available on there. However, don't get caught for the okie doke. It is cheaper for you to get these services through Fiverr. However, sometimes you will get what you pay for. So my first book that I wrote, I paid $100, $150, I think, for my first round of editing. And we're just going to call it what it is. Her anointing does not lie in editing books. She did a horrible job, and it was not a good experience. So I share that because my recommendation when using Fiverr is to only go with top-rated sellers. You will see people who offer a ton of different services for a cheaper price, but the cheaper price does not always mean that it's better. So when I went with the top-rated seller where I spent almost $500, it cost me a whole lot more money, but she did a very thorough job, and she actually did a good job of providing editing services. So keep that in mind. So that's who I went with for my first book. For my second book, Secret Struggles, I went with Amanda Pittman. She did a phenomenal job. The Secret Struggles book, I want to say that one was maybe 46,000 words. So it was significantly more. And I want to say, listen, you got to know where your anointing lies. That's all I'm saying. You got to know where your anointing lies. If it ain't in editing, don't you sign up for them services. That's all I'm saying. You're out here just messing people up, okay? Stay in your lane. That's all I'm saying. So with Amanda Pittman, my second book was 46,000. It was over 46,000 words. And I want to say, I'm naming this off the top of my head, it was $550 that I believe I paid for that. With that being said, there's no set rate when it comes to editing services because, like I said, it is based off of word count. So it's going to vary. Yours could be significantly lower. It can also be significantly higher. Now, with that being said, both of those, the two people who did a phenomenal job on editing, the girl Grammar Gal on Fiverr and then Amanda Pittman, I would recommend both of them. They both did a very good job. What you have to understand with them is that it's going to be a difference as far as, I lost my train of thought that quickly. Oh, the time that you get it back. So you have to understand that depending on how quickly you want your edits back, that can also increase how soon you get them, or it can also increase how much you'll have to pay for it. So just keep that in mind. But there is not going to be like one set cost when it comes to how much you pay for editing. It's going to depend on the word count, how quickly you want it back. So that means you have to look at your deadlines. What type of editing do you need? If you need more of an intense type of editing, that's going to cost more as well. So keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about editing on a budget. Oh, that's what I was going to say with them. The two of them, both of their prices were very, very affordable. $550 or however much I said it was, that may seem like a lot. That is honestly on the low end. Everything else that I have looked at for editing services, it can run you $1,000 plus easily. So editing is definitely going to be the thing that you end up spending the most money on, but it is worth it because you have to think about it like this. Once you hit approve and that book is printed, everybody's going to see it, okay? The last thing you want, it's okay for you to have like a status with some typos, but to have a printed book where people are purchasing it and you got a bunch of typos, nah, we can't do that, okay? So spend the money on editing. I am cheap. I am as cheap as they come. I spent the money on editing, even though I still went the cheaper route. But they did a really good job. Something that I would recommend when it comes to editing, don't hesitate to ask people for samples of their work. If you've never seen anything they've done, if you have questions, do not hesitate to ask those people for samples of their work so that you can get an idea of what type of edit they do, what their editing process looks like. The first lady who edited my book, who I said her anointing did not lie in editing services, she literally just went in and put commas here and there. Girl, like, what? Look. Okay, so feel free to ask people that, and most of them will give them to you. I will say with Amanda Pittman, I knew 2 people who she had previously edited their books for, and I actually like read their books after she had edited it, so I had an idea of what her editing was like. And then the other thing that I really liked about Amanda Pittman is that I don't know her personally, but I like know her. Y'all know how we know people on social media. So I knew that she was like a legit Christian. That was important for me specifically with this book, Secret Struggles, because I wanted someone who had a good understanding of the Bible and the Word of God, that when they were reviewing my book, as far as editing, they're not just looking at sentences that don't make sense or things that don't look right, but she's also, what is the word that I'm looking for? Not verifying like what I stated biblically, but she could point out things like, hey, so for example, one of the things that she pointed out for me, sometimes in my writing, I write as though people already know the same things that I know. Does that make sense? So I may be talking about like salvation, the Great Commission, and things like that, and not necessarily have given the background or the backstory because I'm writing it with my understanding, not making the assumption that everyone who reads my book may not have the same understanding of the gospel as I do. Does that make sense? So some of the things that she suggested is, it's great that you talked about this, but go ahead and explain like what the Day of Atonement is. Explain these things so that your reader can have an understanding of what it is. Don't just assume that they already know it. So that was really important for me with this second book because I wanted to make sure that I wanted someone who I knew understood the Bible and had a good understanding of it, could go through and look at what I had written and not necessarily tell me what to write, but to make sure that like what I was saying, it made sense and it truly lined up with the Word of God. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. What else do we want to talk about with editing? Oh, all right. So going along with editing, something that I would strongly recommend before you send your book to be edited by a professional editor, I definitely would recommend that you just send it to your friends who are good with grammar. Not your friends who just like to read and who don't know the difference between your and your. Send it to people who enjoy English, who have a good understanding of grammar. The reason why I say that is because with my first book, I sent my book to 2 of my friends before I sent it to the professional editor, and they picked up on a lot of things that I did not pick up on. What you have to understand when you're writing a book or when you're just writing in general, your mind is automatically going to see what you meant to say. So as you're reading your own work back, it may be like, oh, I meant to say that, but your mind isn't going to see that something's misspelled or a word is let out or a word is left out because it's just looking at, oh, well, that's what I meant to say. And so your mind like automatically sees what you meant to say versus what you actually said. So it's always good to have another pair of eyes. The other thing, when you have someone else who is reading your work, it helps you to see where you've used like words that are repetitious. It helps you to see, excuse me, where you have said things that, well, I'll just go ahead and talk about myself. I tend to have my own lingo, and I don't realize how I may say something that it makes perfect sense to me. Like, I say this all the time. It makes perfect sense to me. But somebody else reading it is like, girl, what is you talking about? Like, I have no idea what that means. I forget what it was in my first book that I had put. It was something that I said. Oh, well, this one is kind of, I think this one gets a pass. I said something about Boo Boo the Food, and one of my friends had no idea who Boo Boo the Food was. And I'm like, how do you not know this? But it helped me as far as writing to not make the assumption that just because it's common for me or just because it's something that's familiar to me, it doesn't mean that everybody who reads my book is going to know it. And you have to get in the habit of not writing for yourself. And what I mean by not writing for yourself is it's good for you for like your voice to come through in your writing, but you don't want to write to the extent that someone else does not understand what you're talking about just so that you can have your cute lingo in there. Hopefully that makes sense. Also, with having your friends or someone else who's like knowledgeable with grammar, English, and all of that stuff and proofreading, it does help for you to reduce your costs when it comes to the professional editor, because I know for myself, the first round I had 2 people read it beforehand. The second round I only had 1 person read it beforehand, and when I got my edits back from the editor the second time, I ended up cutting out like somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 words. So keep in mind, you're paying for your editing by your words. So if you can cut it down, cut it down. So use those people who have a good understanding of writing and all that stuff. I'm just making sure I don't have any questions or anything. All right, I need a water break. Sorry, guys. Thank you for bearing with me. All right. If I'm going too fast, if you have questions about anything, please feel free to chime in at any point. All right. The other thing that I wanted to say, too, about where to start that I forgot to mention earlier, don't focus necessarily on trying to write your book from the introduction to the final chapter. You don't necessarily have to do it like that. It really just depends on what type of book you're writing. Excuse me. So, for example, with my first book, I did write that chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, because that book was my testimony. And so that was my story. And so everything was in chronological order. So it made more sense for me to write each chapter in order, because in order for me to start use your words, Angel. In order for me to start the next chapter, I had to know where the last chapter was ending. With this book, Secret Struggle, since each chapter is on a different topic, I started with chapter 3, then I went to chapter 8, then chapter 2, then chapter 12. So that was written like all over the place. Don't focus on trying to write your chapters in order, just write. All right, on to formatting. Any questions about editing, where to start, any of that? I'm going to take another water break. Dying over here, y'all. All right, and even if I'm talking, feel free to ask anything, and I'll make sure to answer it. I am really sorry I keep clearing my throat. Okay, let's move on to formatting. So, with formatting, I'll be honest, I don't know what the specific costs are for formatting your book. Because I have always formatted my books myself. Listen, when I tell y'all I'm cheap, if I can do it myself, I'm going to do it myself. Like, if I can figure it out, I will figure it out. All of this stuff, with the exception of editing, you definitely should have someone else to edit your books. But with the exception of editing, everything else you pretty much can do yourself. Like, the internet is your resource. Get on Google, get on YouTube. I learned how to do so much stuff from my first book through YouTube and Google. Trust me, you can figure it out how to do it on your own, but you can always pay someone too. I'm not knocking that. From what I looked at briefly, I want to say that editing will cost you or can run you anywhere between $50 to maybe $150 depending on the length of your book. So how long your book is. So when we're talking about formatting, it's a couple of things. So formatting is actually like condensing your book down to the actual book size. Typically, when you start writing a book, you're usually in the Microsoft Word, or not necessarily Microsoft Word, but it's usually like the 8.5 by, 11, whatever is like the letter size. But when you actually format your book down, it's not that big. And that's another thing as far as where to start. I think a lot of times we get overwhelmed with trying to reach a page count, and we don't take the time to consider that when you're writing in the 8.5 by 11, your chapter may seem like it's only 3 chapters, but once you condense it down and format it to whatever your book size will be, your chapter that's 3 pages will end up being like 10 pages because it ends up doubling because you're making it smaller. So just keep that in mind. All right, so for this book, both my books, I didn't bring the change chart book down here, but for both of my books, they are 5.5 by 8.5. So hopefully y'all can see like how big that is. So this is 5.5 by 8.5. And as far as with formatting the margins, for my first book. All right, well, let me step back. Typically, what's recommended for formatting your margins is 1 inches all around. I personally don't like how the 1 inches look on the right and left for your book because I just think that it looks like it's too much space and it seems like the sentences are really short when you do that. So for my first book, I did 1 inch margins, top and bottom, and then 0.5 margins, left and right. It works. I don't recommend that now. You can get away with it. What will happen is, well, before I say that, let me tell you what this is. So hopefully you all can see this. Let me get a... All right. So, we're trying to reconnect. While that's reconnecting, I'm going to take another word break. Are we good? Okay, there we go. All right, we're back in action. Okay, so this book, the Secret Struggle books, hopefully you can see that there. So this is 1 inch margins, top and bottom, and then left and right are 0.7. So let me put that here for YouTube as well. So with this particular book, I just like how it's not like running off the edge of the page here, but it's also not like shorter sentences. So I do 1 inch margins, top and bottom, 0.7. You can also do 0.75. That's just what I like. So that's how this is set up. The main thing that's really important when formatting your book, if you're going to yourself, you want to make sure that your gutter is 0.25. Now, if you're like me, hey Sam, if you're like me, you have no idea what a gutter is, okay? I had no idea what a gutter was until I wrote my first book. The gutter is this part here. So it's like the inside where, like the spine part. Why does this keep freezing? I don't know why this keeps freezing. We gonna get through this tonight, y'all. I promise. I'm almost done. Kinda, not really. Okay, let's just do this then. I don't know why we're struggling so much. Okay, we're back on. I'm having some technical difficulties here, so my apologies, but I'll give y'all a moment to get back on Facebook, and then we will continue. And I'm running out of water. Oh, let me see if this is even showing up. I forgot all about this. I don't know. Gosh, that doesn't sound good. Hey, Makayla. Alright, I think we're back. We back in living color. I think we're good. Okay. I'm gonna give it a minute, then we're gonna start back. I'm sorry for all these technical difficulties, y'all. Alright, let's see. Oh, how do I make that go away? No? Oh my. I really do. Oh my goodness. Look at there. I really do apologize, guys. I did not expect to have this many issues with it. And I'm sitting in Wi-Fi. Oh man. Alright. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna post a little message on Facebook that if you're wait a minute. That if you're not able to watch on Facebook, the live is up on YouTube. And we're just gonna go from there because we've been prolonging this thing. Oops, how do you spell? Uh-oh. There we go. We're back in. Hey, LaMonica. Alright, I think we're good now. I'm so sorry, y'all. I don't know what the problem is. Alright, let me post this and we're gonna get back to it. Alright, hopefully it's working now and it'll stay working. I don't even remember what I was talking about last, but let's go ahead and get back into this. Okay, so I think the last thing that I was talking about was the gutter. So hopefully y'all know we're all on the same page now about this gutter. So the gutter should be 0.25, and the purpose of that is to make sure that your words here in the center of your book don't go into the spine part where your book opens. So you want to make sure that you change your gutter, and that you can do like in the, I'm pretty sure it's under 4, wherever you change your margins at. Whether it's Microsoft Word, Pages, whatever you use to write your manuscript in, you just make sure that you change the gutter to 0.25. Otherwise, your words are going to be like rolling into the actual spine, and ain't nobody going to want to read that. Okay. Is YouTube cutting up now? You know what? We just having all kinds of problems. I'm about to wrap this up because I'm running out of water, and I'm a little concerned that if I run out of water, I'm going to have like a coughing attack. So we're going to try to wrap this up. Sidebar, for anybody who cares, I'm not a Steelers fan. I don't care about football at all. That's not my stuff. So FYI. All right. Let's go ahead and get back into it. So I think I've covered everything that I wanted to. No. There's more to talk about before. Something that you have to. Facebook. Why have you forsaken me? All right, we're just gonna do it here. Am I gonna have to do like a whole nother video? Because this is just not working tonight. It's so sad. So sad. Alright, there we go, guys. Man, I had no idea it would be this difficult. Okay, So next thing when it comes to formatting, something to keep in mind with formatting when it comes to your manuscript are the fonts that you use. I didn't realize that you notice a lot of books as far as like the title chapters, the titles of the chapters, and then like the main font, they're typically all very similar. The reason for that is it may look cute on your computer, cursive fonts and all the little frilly stuff. It does not print well. So keep that in mind. You can Google commonly used fonts. Don't use Times New Roman. Times New Roman played out. But Google that beforehand. But you can also just like print a page so you can get an idea. I'm sorry that Facebook is like going in and out. I'm sorry. But yeah, just make sure that you test those out. Alright, let's go on to book cover design. I'm going to wrap this up because I feel like, I don't know why we're having so many technical difficulties with it. I really do apologize for that. Alright, book cover design. So, you do not want to design your book cover until you've completed the editing and you completed the formatting. And the reason for that is because you want to make sure that you have the exact measurements for your spine. The spine part of your book is this part here. So you want to make sure that you have the exact measurements for spine. Otherwise, when you go to print your book, it's not going to be right. So the spine is calculated based off of your page number and what type of, I want to say what color page you use, because whether it's cream or white paper determines the thickness of it. So keep that in mind as well. With book cover design, that can cost you anywhere from $50 to like $350. I did use Fiverr for my first book, and that also was not a good experience. And so I ended up designing both of my book covers myself. Now, I designed my book covers in Microsoft Word, and people are always surprised to hear that because people think that you have to design your book covers in Photoshop. You have to get it done professionally. You don't. You can do it in Microsoft Word. I did not mention this at the beginning. I actually forgot to. I do have an online self-publishing course that is offered through artstore.com website where it shows you specifically everything that I'm talking about. I can't show you how to design a book cover because it's like the screen has to be recorded. But that is available through changeheartstore.com if you want like the specifics, you want to see how to do it, actually show you how to do these things. 3D mock-ups and all of that. But get on YouTube, get on Google. Like I said, there's so many resources that are available. You just have to look for it. I got on YouTube and I found this tutorial on how to do your book cover, on how to design a book cover through using Microsoft Word. It can be done. It takes some time. Now, I'm one of those people, like, I enjoy, like, the creative side of stuff, so I enjoy, like, designing book covers, designing different things, and playing around with it. It is a task. It is going to take some time. It is going to require you to play around with some stuff, and sometimes it's not going to look right. You just have to keep playing around with it. If that doesn't interest you, feel free to contact someone to do book cover designs for you. Like I said, I went through Fiverr before. That also was not a top-rated seller that I went through when I tried to get my first book cover design, and I had unlimited revisions, and we went through quite a few to the point where I was just like, I'll just take that one, like, just so I could be done with it. And I got on YouTube, I got on Google, and I figured out how to do it myself. So there's a lot of things that you can do yourself if you want to. Just take some research. YouTube, Google will be your best friends. All right. Some other things that you can use for book covers. Canva.com is a good one if you want to do ebooks. You can also use that. I actually used Canva to design this book cover. So this picture, obviously, I provided the picture, but this layout I did get from Canva.com. So that is something that you can use. What is another one? You can use Photoshop. You do have to pay for Photoshop to do that. That's a little bit more in depth, but listen, get online. You'll be surprised what you can do and what you can figure out how to do on your own. And I'm just the type of person, I will be the first person to admit, it's not that I don't like asking for help, but if I can do it myself, I'm going to do it myself. So that's just me, though. All right. So on to how to actually publish. So at the point that you are ready to publish your book, that means your manuscript is completely finished. You have had your book edited. You have made the corrections to your edits. You have your book completely formatted, table of contents, everything is you want it to be, and your book cover is designed. You are now ready to publish your book. Where do you publish it? So, the 2 books that I have written have been published through createspace.com. It's just like how it sounds. Create, the word space, put together.com. You also can go through lulu.com, Lulu. I have not used that before, but you do have the option. That's another self-publishing site that you can use. So, when you go on createspace.com, and we've lost it again. I don't know why the internet does not like me today. We gonna get through this, y'all. Your stream size is bad. Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. Thanks for letting me know. Alright, let's see. Oh, and I didn't record this. I hope this will still save the playback. I'm so sorry, y'all. Everything just messed up. I don't even know why it's like this. And I'm on 5G. Why are you looking for networks? They right here. They right here. My goodness. Oh, my. Okay, there we go on Facebook. Are we good on YouTube? We don't need now. Alright. We're gonna make it through this. We're almost done. So, let's talk about CreateSpace.com. So, with CreateSpace, everything that I've talked about as far as editing services, formatting, book cover design, all of that is available through CreateSpace.com. You don't have to get it through them to publish, but it is available to. So if that's something that you want to do, it is available on CreateSpace. The one thing that I have heard people complain about with CreateSpace when it comes to editing is if you want to do more than one round of editing, that you don't get the same person every time. So if that's something that's important to you, hey, I have not used any of their services. I always went outside of CreateSpace, so I cannot speak to any of their design, editing, formatting, none of that. As I stated before, why does it still say trying to reconnect? I'm trying so through this, y'all. I'm trying so hard. Let me make this go away. This can't be life. Well, we're gonna take a word break. I'm gonna change location right quick and see if that makes a difference. Give me like 5 minutes. Because I really want to get through this last part without it being like this. Oh, and this lighting is horrible.